Hello, welcome to the Football Malarkey podcast. I am Simon Doyle. It is Monday, all day, the 25th of January 2021, and we have just come off the back of a weekend which had plenty of FA Cup action, one Premier League game, and also an interesting result in La Liga, which I will get into. Atletico Madrid really asserting their dominance in the league this season in La Liga, which is good to see. So, going to get into the FA Cup results, particularly obviously Manchester United over Liverpool, Atletico Madrid, and also the news that came out this morning from Chelsea, which was that they have parted ways with manager Frank Lampard, which I think was not much of a surprise to anyone. And there's a lot more that's come out today about what happened there, why it fell apart, besides the obvious, the results that we could all see on the pitch. There's a very interesting article in The Athletic today, which I read. It was a long read, but a lot of interesting details as to what was really going on behind the scenes at Chelsea in Frank Lampard's tenure and where they're going to go from here. It's an interesting topic of discussion. So we'll get straight into Manchester United 3, Liverpool 2. This is a big win for Ole Gunnar Solskjaer and his team. It's the first win for Manchester United over Liverpool in any competition for I think at least 2.5 years, perhaps 3. It's been a barren run while Liverpool have been a dominant side, obviously, and Manchester United trying to find their feet for that same stretch of time. So it was overdue. It was deserved, even though it was a tight game. And it was a pleasure to see them do it in the way they did it. And if we look at the approach that United took last week when they went to Anfield in the league, it was much more of a let's make sure we don't lose this game first approach. And they did walk away having made the better of the chances and not taking them, and maybe feeling a bit frustrated that there was a couple extra points there that they left behind. So obviously no points on the up for grabs in the FA Cup, just progression or you're knocked out. But I think United thought this time around, especially with it being at Old Trafford, that they needed to take the game to Liverpool, and that if they did, Liverpool could be susceptible, and it proved to be the case. I think in the first half, it was evident to see that United were playing a more open game. There was more space, much more space on offer for both teams than there was in the game last week. United set up with a 4-2-3-1, as they did last week, but last week it was a bit more conservative, given that Fred and McTominay played in the double pivot in midfield. Paul Pogba was out in the right wing. Marcus Rashford and Anthony Martial. Marcus Rashford up top, Anthony Martial out wide, and Bruno Fernandes at number 10. This time he played Pogba in a deeper position. He trusted him in that double pivot beside Scott McTominay to obviously do the defensive role as well as do what Paul Pogba does on the front foot. Donny van de Beek got a rare start at the moment ahead of Bruno Fernandes, and I think he equipped himself fairly well. Marcus Rashford was back on his familiar spot on the left wing. Mason Greenwood came in on the right, and Edinson Cavani provided a very solid option at number 9. And from that team sheet, you could see that it was a different approach from last week at Liverpool. It was every cup game is a must-win game because it's knockout. So you're either through or you're not. Or you go home and you're out of the competition. So you could argue the approach had to be a bit more of an offensive one. Having said that, he could have just gone with the pragmatic approach that he went with last week for the first hour to 70 minutes and then try and make some changes to go for a winner. But I think Ole this season, and I think this will explain why there's been such a discrepancy between our results against big teams this year compared to what they were last year. I think Ole has taken it upon the players to he's put it upon the players to prove that they can go toe to toe with these big teams. Last season, even though we did get plenty of good results in these big games, it was largely due to being very solid in a low block and relying on the pace and the threat that we have on the counter to win games. And it worked. There's nothing wrong with doing that approach at times. It did work last season for United. But this season, if we want to be where we want to be, and that is at the level that Liverpool are at now, for example, you have to evolve, and you have to start taking more risks, and you have to be able to edge out a bit more and go a bit more toe to toe and play a bit more of an open game and really test yourselves both defensively and offensively and see, can you strike that proper balance to win these big games. United have done that all season, I would suggest, and it worked for them in Paris, but then they got done in the reverse fixture against Paris. It worked for them against Leipzig, and then they got done again in the reverse fixture against Leipzig. There was a bit of a more positive approach each time we played Manchester City this season, but the one time in the league and the other in the League Cup semi-final. Now I will say the last half an hour of that league game was very regressive, and we did just decide that we couldn't lose the game. I think that was probably just on the back of a lot of negative results at Old Trafford at the start of the season, and just not wanting to lose that game and then kicking on to win some of the subsequent games against lower opposition. But I think overall Ole has said to the boys, let's go toe to toe with these teams and see where we're at. And this wasn't the first one we've won, because like I said, we did beat PSG in the season, but this was the first domestic one that we've won. We obviously got completely undone by Spurs. Arsenal came to Old Trafford and won. Chelsea came to Old Trafford and got a 0-0 draw. City, like I said, came to Old Trafford, got a 0-0 draw. We went to Leicester with a 2-2 draw. Went to Liverpool, got a 0-0 draw. United needed to win one of these games against a big domestic rival. There is no bigger rival for United than Liverpool. They needed to win one of these games, and they did it yesterday, and that's why it was a big step. It was a big win for United. Because of that, they went toe to toe with Liverpool and they came out on top. Yes, if you look at the stats, I'm certain it'll say Liverpool had the more of the ball. They even created plenty of chances compared to what happened last Sunday. But United created plenty of chances too, and United took one more than Liverpool did, and that was enough. And I think United went into the game wanting to win in that manner. So in that respect, it was a big win. It was an important win as well, in the sense that all season United have been doing well at coming from behind to win games, but to do that against this Liverpool team, I think just made it all the better. They felt comfortable even when they went behind, even when they got pegged back to 2-2. They still felt, no, we can go on and win this game. And I must say that watching United now, it feels a lot more settled, a lot more calm. You don't feel as though, if the wind suddenly starts blowing in the other direction, we'll lose our nerve, and that seemed to be happening certainly last season, and even at times this season. And they really do look like they know what they're doing. And they're assured of their plan, and they try and carry it out, and I think we saw that yesterday. I mentioned Paul Pogba playing in the double pivot. He was excellent again yesterday. Another top class performance from him. A very, very dogged defensive display. Really went under the radar, I think, how solid he was defensively, and then did what he did when he got on the ball. Initiated a lot of United's counter-attacks, pushed forward when he could. He wasn't the man to make the difference in terms of any goal contributions, but he certainly played a pivotal role in providing the rest of the team the platform to go on and score goals. So I was very impressed with Paul Pogba yesterday. I said Donny van de Beek got the start at number 10 in the number 10 role, which he did. I thought he was good. I thought no more than a 6, maximum 7 out of 10 from him, but I think it was very neat and tidy in possession. He worked very hard off the ball. He's obviously used to the pressing system at Ajax. The thing I love watching about Donny van de Beek is his positional and spatial awareness is incredible. If you watch the first United goal back, the Mason Greenwood goal, obviously Rashford plays a fantastic ball to Mason Greenwood, who goes on and scores, but the ball into Rashford comes from Donny van de Beek. Paul Pogba put in a brilliant sliding tackle to win the ball on the edge of our own box, laid it off to Donny van de Beek, and Donny, he's running towards his own goal, and manages with his first touch just open out and play a first time ball by 35 yards at least to the left wing where Marcus Rashford was. He picked him out first time when everyone seemed caught off guard by the pass, and that's what gave Marcus Rashford the time to go and play the pass that he did into Mason Greenwood. And it didn't get spoken about really in any analysis that I saw, but it was just a pivotal piece in the build-up play to that goal, and it sums up Donny van de Beek very well. His awareness on the pitch is as good as anything I've seen in quite a while. So he got taken off, I want to say around 65 minutes, and Bruno came on, but I thought it was a good solid display, especially considering he hasn't started in a game. He started the last FA Cup game against Watford. Other than that, that's been his only start in, I think, since the League Cup quarter-final against Everton. So a very solid start for Donny coming back into the team, and long may it continue. I hope he gets a couple more starts in the coming games, and he can hopefully put in a few more solid performances and maybe get himself an assist or a goal. He also positioned himself extremely well at times in the box. He makes those late runs very well, and he positioned himself very well at one point where Mason Greenwood was through on the right and chose to shoot from a very tight angle instead of passing it back, which I think he should have done. Easy to say in hindsight, but Van der Beek put himself in a great position there to maybe finish with a first time touch, but he will do that all day, Donny van der Beek, and he scored in his debut for us against Crystal Palace, but he will chip in with goals and assists if he gets regular minutes. So good to get Bruno a rest as well, because we desperately need him to be fully fit for the rest of the season, particularly in the big games. And he came on and made the difference with a fantastic free kick, which was just brilliantly dispatched. I think he fooled the goalkeeper a little bit, thinking he was going to go over the wall, and then just placed it right in that side. And Alisson was caught a bit off guard. I think Pogba acted as a screen as well to try and block his view of it, but it's very well worked and a great execution, and that's what Bruno does. He's world class. Marcus Rashford also was quite impressive yesterday. That was the best performance I've seen from him in the last 5 or 6 games. He was active in almost every attack United had. He was pivotal. Obviously played that first ball to Mason for the first goal, which was a fantastic ball, 40 to 50 yards easily over the Liverpool back line, straight into Mason's path. Took a bounce, Mason chested down and dispatched it perfectly. Mason's such an ice cold finisher. That kid is going to be special, and good to see him get that goal as well after having a rocky start to the season, to say the least. And then Marcus got himself on the score sheet for the second. Mason returned the favour this time, playing a lovely ball over the top. Marcus just kept himself on side. I didn't see those VAR lines used for whatever reason. I'm pretty sure VAR was there. They didn't show us those lines because it was extremely tight. But from one angle it looks like he's off. From another angle I saw it looks like he's on. So it's hard to tell. It was extremely tight. But nevertheless, Marcus was through on goal. and good to see him keep his cool with Fabinho and Williams closing him down. Putting pressure on him from behind. They were catching up quick enough, and Alisson coming in. Alisson for me is probably the best goalkeeper in the world, so Marcus kept his cool well and just slotted it perfectly into the far bottom corner. And yeah, overall a very good performance from him, so good to see, very good to see. Manchester United need these players on form and scoring goals. Edinson Cavani as well. I thought Cavani was excellent. He put in a proper all-round performance for a number 9. He made one big mistake which led to Liverpool's second goal, but other than that I thought he led the line superbly. He challenged for everything that went up there. He pressed, he dropped off when was needed and played some very good passes. He actually played the ball to Greenwood, who then played the ball to Rashford for that second goal, and then almost made it 4 with an excellent header. Bruno's cross was maybe not perfect. It could have been a little more in front of Cavani, but Cavani got right up in the air, got up very high, hung in the air, and smacked down an excellent header, which unfortunately just bounced off the post. Had the keeper beaten, but wasn't on target, unfortunately, and smacked off the post. That would have been a superb goal for him to get, but overall his contribution was excellent. And for me at the moment, it's a no-brainer, given Martial's very poor form, that Cavani is the number 9 for United at the moment. So hopefully he can keep that level of performance up. But yeah, very good performance from United. They opened up, like I said, and played a more expansive game this time around, which is what I think led to the goals that Liverpool scored as well. I heard some people, saying, well, Liverpool have gotten back into a bit of goal scoring form in that game, and Salah's back in the score sheet. I'm sure they'll be happy about that. But I do think United played a more open game this time around. It wasn't that they suddenly learned how to break down our low block. It's that United didn't play as much in a low block as they did last week. We opened up a lot more this time around, but Liverpool took full advantage. Firmino played a superb ball, perfectly split Lindelof and Shaw. People were kind of pointing the finger at both players. Some people blaming Shaw more, some people blaming Lindelof more, for the fact that ball went through to Salah. But for me, the fact that you can't really pick out whose fault it was showed how good of a pass it was from Firmino. It couldn't have been better. It really couldn't. That was a precision pass right through to Salah, who brilliantly lifted it over. Dean Henderson did nothing wrong either. He came out at the perfect time. He made himself big and it went over his head. You can't cover every space. So it was a very good goal for Liverpool. Took full advantage of the gaps that we had. All I would say is, for me, I do think Victor Lindelof was a little more at fault than Shaw. I don't think the fullback should be sprinting in to stand beside a centre-back. For me, that doesn't make sense. There was no number 9 present. Firmino had dropped off to play that pass. There was nobody for Lindelof or Maguire, who's typically on that side, by the way. I don't know why they were switched. There was no number 9 for them to mark. So for me, when Salah makes that inverted run and decides to go into the middle, I don't want my fullback standing right beside my centre-backs. That makes no sense to me. Once he makes that run, it's for the centre-back to pick up in that scenario. And if you look at Lindelof's reaction, he's a little scared when he sees that ball being played by Firmino, and he reacts poorly. For me, he reacts like Salah's running behind him when he wasn't. He was running to the side of him, and it's all due to a lack of awareness. He got a little afraid and didn't check his shoulder properly. And if you notice, Lindelof, he starts to make a run. Instead of running into Salah's path, he starts to run a little more towards his own net, because that's where he thinks Salah's going, because he hasn't properly looked at his run. And maybe there was a lack of communication from Shaw to pass him on, because Salah does make the run from Shaw into Lindelof. Maybe that was the case, and that maybe that's why Lindelof got caught off guard. But for me, he doesn't fully know what's going on around him, Lindelof, if you look at the replay of the goal again. And he has to take fault for not addressing the run properly, I would suggest. Anyway, it was a good goal from Liverpool's point of view. Salah back on the score sheet, and they took the lead. United got the Greenwood goal shortly after. The Rashford goal came just after half time. It was 1-1 at the break. And and then Liverpool equalised. This one, the blame has to largely go on to Cavani. United were playing out from the back, which was good to see them try and do. We are getting better at that against high pressing teams. There's no better team to test yourself really than against Liverpool when playing out from the back. Maguire got pressured. He looked up and saw Cavani dropping deep from number 9, and it was a good pass. Cavani then played a very sloppy pass trying to find Scott McTominay, who pushed up to try and help Cavani, and that left a big gap in the midfield, and the fullbacks were already out wide because we're trying to play out from the back. So we looked very exposed, and when you give a ball away that sloppily in that area, you will get punished, and that's exactly what happened. The ball went to Firmino, and Cavani, had trying to atone for his error, ran back into Scott McTominay's vacated position, but Firmino very easily played a ball past him because Cavani's not a defensive midfielder and he didn't have the awareness to see what the danger was, and James Milner made a good run into the box, which Harry Maguire had to then come across to address. I don't know if anyone got a touch on it or it was dummied by Milner, but it went through them and went to Salah, who was challenged by Shaw, but Shaw was never favoured to get there first. Salah hit a hard and low, and I think it's fair to say that if De Gea's in net, he probably saves that, given how good he was with his feet, because it kind of comes right at Henderson's heel and he moves his foot a bit. It's frustrating to watch in slow motion, but easy to be critical in hindsight, and obviously watching in slow motion. I'm sure XG would give the probability that Salah was always likely to score from there, but maybe the goalkeeper has to take a bit of a blame, just given that it was kind of straight at his feet, but certainly not his fault. I think the blame has to lie with Cavani for that goal in giving the ball away very sloppily when we were so open. It was a little criminal. So yep, so that was 2-2, and then Bruno, like I said, came on, got the winner. Cavani atoning a little bit by winning the free kick, which got us the goal, which was a stonewall free kick. I don't understand at all the amount of criticism over the referee's decision there, and a lot of people, apparently Ian Wright, claiming that Cavani dived to win that. Just watch the replay. Fabinho comes to the back of his leg. He doesn't get the ball at all, comes right through the back of his leg, knees him in the back of the leg. What do you expect him to do? Obviously he's going to go down. I'm not saying he dived, he didn't. There was enough contact to bring him down. You can say he embellished, maybe. It's definitely a foul. It was a stonewall free kick all day. So, and Fabinho didn't get booked for it. It was right in the edge of the box. If Cavani just turns there, he's right through on the goalkeeper one-on-one. So I didn't understand how that wasn't a second booking for Fabinho. That made no sense to me at all. But Fabinho's good at getting away with them, just like Thiago and Fernandinho. Yeah. Anyway, so I'm not sure too much has changed for the better. Obviously, it's not a good thing losing a game for Liverpool, but I'm not sure too much has changed for the better in terms of putting the ball in the back of the net. Obviously, they got these 2 goals, but they don't have a problem when teams are a bit more open. It's the teams that really sit deep and sit in a low block and just say, try break us down. That's what Liverpool have been struggling against. That's not what happened with either goal against United yesterday. So I don't think you can say that those goals have shown that they're addressing that problem, because that wasn't what they came up against. So it'll be very, very interesting to see now against Spurs, who you can almost guarantee good money on will sit deep and will sit in a low block and tell Liverpool break us down, and have Kane and Son try and do damage on the counter-attack. It's going to be very interesting to watch and see if Liverpool can overcome that. Spurs will arguably do that as well as anybody in the league can. So intriguing game coming up on Thursday night when Spurs and Liverpool meet, and Spurs are the home team as well, so intriguing fixture, that one. But United move on to the next round. We'll be playing West Ham at Old Trafford. West Ham are certainly in decent shape themselves, so that won't be easy by any means. Got Burnley as well. And the just going over the fifth round ties here. The round of 16 is what it is really. Next round after this will be the quarterfinals, but Burnley will be playing the winner of Bournemouth and Crawley Town, which is tomorrow. United and West Ham play. Sheffield United, Bristol City. Wolves against Southampton, that'll be a good game. Barnsley against Chelsea. Everton against Spurs, that'll be a very good game. Swansea City against Manchester City. City getting lower league opposition again in a cup tie. And Leicester City against Brighton. So some very good games in the last 16 round there of the FA Cup, which would be played. I think it's going to be midweek fixtures, the 10th of February. So that's going to be, I guess, 2 weeks from this midweek. Is when those FA Cup games will happen. So yeah, interesting. United, hopefully. I think the FA Cup, I'd rather see them challenge for the FA Cup than the Europa League, unless we suddenly start falling off in the league and look like we're not going to get Champions League football. But I think we will definitely be strong enough to finish inside the top four fairly comfortably. So for me, I'd like to get our hands in the FA Cup again. Arsenal have recently taken our record off us. We held it for a while, being the record FA Cup holders, and Arsenal have won the FA Cup I think 4 times now in the last 7 or 8 years. So I think we're 1 or 2 behind them now. So I'd like to get back up to the top of that record as well and be the FA Cup holders again, hopefully. So let's see if we can make it happen this year. So going to move on now to the decision that Chelsea have taken, which is to sack Frank Lampard. Now, I spoke on my last podcast about how I felt Frank Lampard should have been given to the end of the season, that there had been some promising signs both last season and early this season. Now, I understand the last 6 to 7 weeks have been fairly disastrous for Chelsea. Some of the performances, particularly that one away to Arsenal, were a bit unforgivable. They lost. They got absolutely destroyed by Manchester City at home, and then were quite comprehensively beaten by Leicester City in midweek. I spoke after that game saying that Leicester looked comfortable. They were worth their 2-0 win easily. And for a board that has put in, what was it, a ballpark figure, around £250 million worth of transfers in one summer, off the back of Chelsea finishing 4th the season before, 1 spot above Leicester, you can understand why they would deem that as unacceptable. All I would say is anyone really surprised by Chelsea sacking a manager when they're not doing well? No, because this is what Roman Abramovich's Chelsea do. But when they hired Frank Lampard, I had been saying for a long time that I wasn't a fan of Chelsea's way of operating. Their idea that if a manager doesn't do well, almost immediately get him out the door, get someone better in. And they would cycle through managers. They would often sack a manager around this time of the season and bring in someone for the interim until the end. Sometimes that interim manager then got the job full time. It just seemed very chaotic. But in their defence, for quite a while it mostly worked, and they would win a league title every 2 to 3 seasons. They last won the title in 2017. So you could say that they are still for a club that exists to try and win trophies and try compete at the top level, even though they do it in a very kamikaze manner, where they're kind of up there, then they're way down, then they're up there again, and they're way down, and so on. Overall, over the last 20 years, they have had fantastic success. They've won 5 league titles in that time. They've won the Champions League. They've won the Europa League twice. They've won numerous FA Cups. I think they've won 6 or 7 FA Cups in that stretch of time. They've won the League Cup a few times. I think it's between them and Manchester United for who has had the biggest trophy haul in the last 20 years. So in that sense, you can't criticize and say it doesn't work. Personally, it's not for me, because maybe this is just because I am a Manchester United fan. I rather seeing the sustained level of success with one manager, rather than this chaotic chopping and changing all the time and being terrible one month and then being top of the world the next month. It's like I said, very kamikaze, and it's not my preference. So the sacking of Frank Lampard fits in with that modus operandi. But when they hired Frank Lampard, I thought, okay, now it seems like they're trying to change a bit. They're trying to rely less on players and trying to be a bit more sustainable with a long-term project, with a long-term manager. That's what it seemed like they were trying to do when Frank Lampard came in. This sacking makes it seem as though there just wasn't anybody who they wanted who was willing to take the job at the time, so they just gave it to Frank and said, as soon as things start to go pretty bad, we'll change him. And I've read, as I said earlier, I've read a piece in the Athletic today, which was very, very good. It was very detailed about what was going on behind the scenes. Apparently Frank Lampard wasn't very happy with Marina Granovskaya, who's a director at the club. Wasn't happy with the transfer policy, apparently. And thought, and also had quite a problem with quite a few of the squad, members of the squad, in that he wasn't really speaking to them. Apparently he would not really speak to players who weren't playing that often. He would kind of see himself as the type of manager who's distant and cold towards the players, and who you basically, I guess he's trying to make them just try and impress him. Not sure that really works with the modern player. I think they want to feel like they can approach the manager and understand why they're not playing and what they have to do to get themselves into the team. And it doesn't sound as if Frank Lampard was doing that. Now, if he says he is unhappy with the transfers, I mean, I said last time that for the amount of money they were spending, some of the transfers didn't make a whole lot of sense to me. Didn't understand how they were going to fit all these players in. So if it is the case that Frank Lampard didn't exactly want those players and was told to kind of go along with it, I could understand his frustration. At the same time, the inside scoop is that he only wanted Ben Chilwell out of all of those signings. Now, I find that very hard to believe, that none of Ziyech, Werner, Havertz, Thiago Silva or Mendy, the goalkeeper, were wanted by Frank Lampard. It would be a very Chelsea thing to do, to just go over their manager's head and decide that they were signing these players because, I don't know, their scouting department or whoever is controlling these decisions wanted these players in. Were they always recruiting for the next man rather than for Frank Lampard? we don't know at this stage. We might never know. But for me, if Frank Lampard was, even if he was unhappy, taking this approach where he was distant from the players was never going to help the situation. I think if you can get the players on side as the manager, even if they weren't your players, you can still get much better, much more consistent performances out of them. And yeah, things might not be perfect because you haven't quite got the players you want, but you can keep that harmony together. You can keep the players playing for you, and then it's much harder for the board to sack you. But it doesn't look like he's taken that approach. And to be quite honest, since his time at Derby, I've never been too impressed by how he carries himself as a manager. And what I mean by that is, well, we had that whole Spygate situation between Leeds and Derby when he was there. And when he was asked about it, and it's the same situation I saw at Chelsea when he was asked about, bad results or simply things, the manager wouldn't typically want to talk about. Usually you see these big managers just they maybe try and laugh it off, or they hold themselves with a certain amount of dignity most of the time, and they try and play things down and make it seem as though everything's blown out of proportion. Where I always thought Frank Lampard reacted quite petulantly. He seemed to have a bit of a sulk whenever things weren't going his way, or when he was asked about things that, like the Spygate situation at Leeds, and even recently he was asked in a press conference last week. I can't remember what the exact question was, but it was a basic enough question, and he retaliated by saying, well, that's nonsense, and all the stories you've been writing all year have been nonsense, which is never a good look for a manager, even if you really want to say that and you believe that. If this guy, whoever the journalist was, if he's someone you don't respect, then why are you reading his stuff all the time? And it's a bit, as a United fan, it's quite rich to hear Lampard coming out with this, given how lightly he's been treated compared to Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. You want to see abuse from the press, just look at what some people continue to write still today. You'll go and find new articles written today that are negative about Solskjaer, coming from all corners of the media. So I thought Frank Lampard didn't carry himself with enough maturity and dignity as a manager, as a top level manager. So even on the sideline when things weren't going as well, he would kind of look sulky and blame his players in post-match press conferences. I'm not expecting a manager who's losing to be smiling on the sideline. Obviously you see all managers react, and you can look over at them and they've got a bit of a look on their face if they're not winning. But I just felt as though he very much went inside himself and looked like he was in a huff, in a sulk when things weren't going his way. And I don't think you can do that as a top level manager. I don't think you can carry yourself like that. So it wouldn't surprise me for him to get the Chelsea game or Chelsea job again sometime in the future, if he chooses to stay in management and he maybe goes back down to the Championship, maybe gets a job somewhere else, works away at it for quite a while. There might be a time in the future when him and Chelsea come together again. He'll have a lot to prove to put himself in that position again, I believe, but I wouldn't be surprised. I also wouldn't be surprised to see John Terry be manager of Chelsea in the future as well. He's obviously a coach at Aston Villa at the moment. So looks like Thomas Tuchel's going to come in. It'll be interesting to see Thomas Tuchel in the Premier League. He's obviously considered a master tactician. Apparently is quite a good man manager as well, and gets along with players well. So it will be intriguing in that respect to watch. He'll have so many good players to work with there at Chelsea, right from when he walks in. Should he accept the job, it looks like that is going to be the case. So we will see. Obviously, as a United fan, I don't want things to go well for our rivals, and Chelsea are one of them. But I do think it will be intriguing to have Tuchel in the league, and interesting to see what he can do with this Chelsea team, particularly if he can get 2 or 3 of his own signings in the summer, which I'm sure he will. And Chelsea are not that far off top 4, so they can still turn things around. I do think there are a lot of problems still in the squad though, and again, referring back to that article I read earlier in The Athletic, it looks like there's a number of players there with too much power, which has always been a thing at Chelsea in the Abramovich era anyway. Where the players have maybe a bit too much sway in the dressing room. Lampard used to be one of those players, so it's ironic. So it's not to say that Tuchel will be walking into a perfect situation there. He won't. So there's no guarantee of success for Tuchel, but you can't deny the talent of player he has to work with there. And if Chelsea really do want Tuchel, then they should be giving him the time to make it work. But like I said before, this is Chelsea, and we're just never surprised when they make cutthroat decisions. Yeah, it is what they do. So we shall see. Last thing I want to touch on before I finish is in La Liga. Yesterday, Atletico Madrid had a very good win at home to Valencia, 3-1, which was their 7th straight win in La Liga, and put them 7 points clear of Real Madrid with a game in hand, which if they win, obviously they could be 10 points clear at the top of La Liga at the halfway stage. They played 18 games, Atletico Madrid, so they're 1 game off being halfway, and like I said, they're on 47 points. So if they win that game, they're on 50 points at the halfway stage, which means if they kept that form in the second half of the season, they could hit 100 points, which would be obviously an incredible season. I don't think they quite will, but I think I'm going to tip them to get approximately 95, and hopefully that'll be enough for them to win the league. Neither Real Madrid or Barcelona are strong at the moment. I don't think either of them is capable of hitting 95 points this season, but there is always that situation in the Liga where if you have one of those two or both breathing down your neck, it's very easy to crack under the pressure, because they've just been there and done it much more than any other clubs in Spain. But I sincerely hope that Atletico Madrid do hold their nerve, do win the league again. They won it last in 2014, and there's been times in the last 6 years since then where either Barcelona or Real Madrid haven't looked great, or both haven't looked great, and Atletico Madrid have failed to capitalise, I think, and Barcelona particularly have won the league on occasion in that time span when they haven't been that convincing themselves, particularly more recent years. And I've personally always been disappointed at the challenge that Atletico Madrid have put in, but they look a different beast this year, and I think the addition of Luis Suarez beside Joao Felix, who is having his second season at Atletico Madrid, they really are looking strong. Even after losing Thomas Partey a bit unexpectedly in the summer, they weren't quite prepared for Arsenal to come along and play that buyout fee. It did come as a bit of a surprise to them, so they are coping very well, very, very well. So I really hope they do go on and win the league this year. It's good for La Liga, for Atletico Madrid. Wanted Sevilla to do it last season. They look very strong, and obviously they fell towards the final few hurdles, but hopefully Atletico Madrid can shake things up a bit in Spain. I think there has to be a lot to be said for maybe just that expertise in knowing how to win a league title, but just that edge that Luis Suarez brings you. I'm sure he's having a big impact on the rest of that Atletico Madrid squad. And Joao Felix this season, I wasn't so sure when they bought him for 100 million. I thought there's even more than that, I think. I thought this could go badly south. But this season, he's very impressive every time I watch him. I watched him a few times in the Champions League group stage this season. There was one game against, I think it was Lokomotiv Moscow, where he was superb. He is a serious talent, João Felix. Serious talent. He got another very good goal. Yesterday was the equaliser. They went 1-0 down with a superb shot. I think the Valencia midfielder, Recic, I think his name is, about 30 yards out and just hit it high and bent it, and it was over the goalkeeper and then dipped into the top corner. It was a superb strike. Goalkeeper Jan Oblak, one of the best in the world, couldn't get near it. But Atletico Madrid just kept looking away, playing their game. João Felix got a proper poacher's goal. You wouldn't describe João Felix as a poacher. He's a bit more of an all-round striker, but he nipped in front of his marker at the back post from a corner and stabbed it home. Was a real poacher's goal. Excellent goal. If you're going to get 20 to 30 goals a season, you have to score a few of those. So good goal from João Felix. Luis Suarez got the second with a typical Luis Suarez finish. Broke down the left hand side of the box and bent it around the goalkeeper low into the far corner. And I think Angel Correa got the third, after another strong bit of build-up play from Atletico Madrid down the right hand side. So Correa is always good for a few goals every year as well. Very, very useful player to have. And yeah, another very good win for Atletico Madrid. They go top of the table, and like I said, I hope they can sustain it. I hope they challenge for the league, and I hope that they just shake things up a bit in Spain and not only win the league this season but go on to continue to challenge, because their team is relatively young. They have a good solid selection there in that squad, and they can build something special over the next few years. Simeone continues to operate at an extremely high level. So yeah, they're going to be intriguing to watch this season, and hopefully the next season or two to come. They play Chelsea as well, actually. Spoke of the two clubs. They meet in the last 16 of the Champions League in February. That's going to be an intriguing tie, with Tuchel just in the door at Chelsea against this Atletico Madrid. So yeah, good stuff going on in Spain. Alright, so I'm going to leave it there. This week does have a full round of Premier League fixtures, so I'll be back on Thursday after the Spurs-Liverpool game to discuss all of them. Some games tomorrow night, Wednesday night, and then on Thursday is the lone game, Spurs against Liverpool, which is the biggest game of the round. So lots to look forward to. Lots of football going on at this time of the year. So right, thank you very much for watching. Appreciate it. Cheers.